Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. Joined today from Department of Ag Trade Consumer Protection. It is our friend, Michael. Michael, I didn't know that you knew a lot about pigs.
We are the Department of Agriculture.
Bam! Shut down. We're going to be talking about pig butchering, but not in the sense of butchering animals here. We're talking about investment scams. And fascinating one here today because ultimately I would think this goes on in a lot of different scenarios, but in this one specifically, it's sad because it's preying on somebody and they're losing money and more money and more money, and that's where you're going to get at that pig scenario of you're just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then they're just gone and you're up a creek or crick, depending where you are in Wisconsin. So out of all of that jargon, investment scams and pig butchering, where do we go from here?
I think it's knowing how to look out for the red flags and understanding what the pig butchering and how it got its name. And you kind of alluded to some of that. And the name actually is drawn from the equivalent of a farmer having livestock, in this case maybe a pig, and spending the time and committing the resources into fattening that pig up so that there's more value for it when it's taken to market and processed. And the same thing happens with the scammers. They're willing to devote more time and effort and resources into that particular scam or that particular victim or target, and then trying to lengthen that out. And sometimes even investing potentially some of their own money to add confidence to that. And that's what the FBI calls it, is a confidence-enabled scam, meaning they're taking the time to break down your suspicions and kind of dispel some of those worries and concerns you have, and then they get you fully committed, and that's where they start fattening you up before eventually cutting off ties, and that is the slaughter.
Now you might be asking yourself, how could this really be successful? Well, the FTC tracked this, and investment scams, it's startling. I break it down here. I want to read them, but I want you to say it because you're better at it. But it's pretty incredible here that it's working.
Yes, it is. So in 2023, of all the fraud reports that were reported, pig butchering scams only accounted for 4% of those. However, the total losses of all money that consumers lost and victims lost, pig butchering accounted for 30% of it. So 30% of all losses, a third of it, was due to these pig butchering scams. And the other noteworthy statistic about that is your average fraud loss is about $600 for all these different types that we talk about here and there. But the average fraud loss for an investment pig butchering scam is $7,000. And that illustrates, because they're putting in the time and they're trying to bleed out as much as they can before they get to the end.
So this kind of poses, we just talked about cryptocurrency in a recent interview, and we were kind of talking about not understanding crypto. Same thing here maybe applies in investment. When you're talking about investments, maybe you're not so familiar with it. Is it that these scammers know how to take advantage of you because of that? Or how do you think that kind of fits into this puzzle?
Well, it's a little bit of that. It's a little bit of assuming that they may not have the knowledge on crypto, but it also is tying into just the need and the desire of human nature to make money, and want to get rich quick, or just want to get rich in general. And so they use a couple different inception points, oftentimes with doing romance scams, starting with, you meet someone, and through that dialogue, they say, hey, look, maybe I do some investing on the side, or they use that as an opportunity to further the relationship and how they can have that life together. Alternatively, we'll see some just pop into chat rooms or friend circles as coaches and explain, here's, if you want to, I can teach you how to invest. And a lot of it always revolves around cryptocurrency. And saying, here, look at the market, and then either they'll create fake platforms or they'll falsify what those proceeds are. And then ultimately that still encourages them to invest more and more and more because they see that they're making money or what they perceive to be profits.
So if you suspect that your money's going down the drain at this point, or you suspect that, there's something going on here and it just doesn't feel right, what would you suggest people do at that moment instead of continuing the conversation with them? Because if you ask the scammer, of course they're going to keep feeding you the narrative and you're going to keep losing money, and i.e. you're going to be stuck here with less money and more frustration.
I think just stop. Just stop and pause and think about what's happening, and then take a step back. And we always ask a few people around you that you trust, and just say, look, this is what's going on. Does it sound realistic? Does it sound reasonable? Take someone who's not as emotionally invested in what's happening, maybe take a peek, and then also reach out to maybe some trusted investors, somebody who is legitimate, runs the business, say, hey, this is what I'm seeing, is this real? Oftentimes you may find out that's not the case, but also at the same time, those scammers don't want you talking to anyone else. So by pausing in place and saying, wait a second, what do I have here? But then at that point also, if you are in fact being scammed, you're going to stop the losses. Because you're going to find when it's time to withdraw that money, they're going to tell you can't, that there's a withdrawal fee. They're going to tell you there's a penalty, you have to pay taxes, something else, and you're going to discover that you're not able to get that money. So the quicker that you respond to that gut feeling on those red flags, the better off you'll be because you won't be losing more money.
Funny, I was going to ask you any other red flags here that could just again prompt you to be like, oh man, there's something going on here that's fishy.
Yeah, I think one is when they want to try and encourage you to keep investing more money, and they tell you that the more you invest, the more you'll get back, and the profits will be higher. And fundamentally that's true, but they're going to try and get you to do it quickly. Also, in tying in romance scams, you're going to see them what we call love bombing, where there's I think the data showed that 1 in 10 or 1 in 18, 1 in 10 Americans who have used a dating app have been a target of pig butchering, whether they realize it or not. And so that in itself is saying, all right, but in those dating apps, then you'll see somebody who has the perfect profile, they're overly committing, they want to have that life together, and here's how they get it, and they just need you to invest, and next thing you know, you're caught up in the romance side of it, and you're envisioning what will be, and then that's one huge red flag that we're seeing.
I like the idea of stopping and talking to people, talking to some other investors and kind of, really just like, hey, this doesn't feel right. What do you think? And, I'm sure they'd be happy to say, yeah, no, not a good idea. Yeah. But ultimately, if you're circling back to this and where are people finding this and getting hooked up? Are they finding this on traditional, again, maybe it's for a website, maybe social media? How are they getting involved? Because they're obviously have skipped the point of calling somebody, or they've skipped the point, somewhere they're missing it, and are they finding this online and that's kind of where it's going, or is it a spam thing? Where are they getting it?
It's all of them. You hit on all of them. It is starting, the dating apps that we talked about, but also we've seen where kind of these WhatsApp groups will have friend circles, and we're just seeing people suddenly pop into a WhatsApp chat group, and they'll say, I'm so-and-so, and they just talked about, maybe they do investment coaching, and all of a sudden somebody's interested, and they think because they're in that circle that they've somehow penetrated or infiltrated and thought, well, this can only be approved by a friend, and so it must be somebody we can trust. They'll get in that way. The other is social media feeds, just tossing up things about, hey, want to learn more, invest in crypto, want to get rich, and there's a picture of them sitting on their yacht and learn more here, and then, down the path you go.
I find myself in all these interviews saying, "No, don't do this, don't do that. Don't use the internet. Don't do." It's realistic that you're gonna go online, and I think I want people to be safe, no matter what age, to go online, but to be aware of spotting those things, of finding those red flags, of just doing something to do that extra piece, that extra step in there, so they don't make the mistake and end up down the road. But that takes time and effort, and having you coming back here and telling us about these scams to make sure that you don't. But at the end of the day, you guys are here to educate and continue to remind people of this. Every day it's happening. Don't let your guard down. And, you can see what happens if you end up going down a path where you thought, wow, this is just great.
Yeah.
But I don't want the doom and gloom either. I think we spend a lot, spend a lot of time that doom and gloom area, but that's not always the point here. We want people to know, we want people to step up and hopefully stop it from happening, and also report it too. We don't know it's happening unless people do tell us what it is. So summarize all that. Go.
Okay, here we go. Starting with recognizing how you see the signs and what you want to talk about. I think the big part there is recognizing your emotional attachment and involvement in it, and be willing to take that step back. A lot of victims would say, if somebody else had maybe told me or explained to me what was going on, I would know. But also, conversely, some victims will say, even if you'd have told me, I'd have kept going because, I want to believe that it's true and so on. But that also ties in with the reporting. If you do fall victim for it, recognize that you're a victim. Try and fight the embarrassment, and there's no shame that comes with it because you were targeted for this. You are a victim. But the only way for anyone to help is to maybe potentially recover some of those losses if it's quick enough, is to report it. Because if we don't know about it, we can't help. And so it's all those things in combination of breaking down the barrier of not allowing yourself to continue to fall into it because now you're embarrassed, or now you're in so deep that you got to commit a little bit more. In the poker terms, you're pot committed, so you just got to keep going. Fight all of those emotional intuitions.
Yeah. No, I think it's great information, and I always feel like, man, every time we find an easier way to do something, scammer's right there following along and, jumps the course, and you got to just keep up on it. But hey, I appreciate you breaking it down. If people want to learn more, report it, or just stay involved, because that's one way. We got to stay involved. How can they do so?
Please visit us at datcp.wi.gov. If you have any questions, you think you may have fallen victim for a scam, or just want some resources on where we can point you in the right direction, you can visit us there, or you can give us a call at 1-800-422-7128.
Michael, always a pleasure. Thanks for putting up with all my questions and randomness.
Appreciate you having me. Thanks.